Well, good afternoon and welcome. Today is Thursday, January 28th, and this is Supercharging Your Job Search. Gosh, thank you for joining in here today. Just a heads up, if we hit a little bit of an internet connection issue right in the middle, I'm still working out that glitch, you will see just a green screen with my little logo on it for maybe 60 to 90 seconds. In case that happens, just understand we'll continue right away if that happens right in the middle, and let's jump into today. So welcome again. Let's just shift and recap the last 2 weeks. All of these lectures are still up on my Facebook and my YouTube. Resume renovation we did on January 20th. LinkedIn Showplace on the 21st. On this past Tuesday, we did interviewing in a pandemic world. And today is all about job search, how you really take control and supercharge your job search for a very, very different result. We can't just sit back any longer and think that we're really going to get what we'd like from just clicking and sending and a few other things like that. Now, as I do say in a number of my lectures, but especially the LinkedIn lecture, don't let someone else think for yourself. You know, we're so much on autopilot. Let me just come a little bit larger here. You know, we're so much on autopilot. We tend to just, we'll just do what everyone else does. Okay, there's an awful lot of job seekers today, and there's an awful lot of need. What you have to think about is how you use all of the tools at your disposal today in this pandemic world to really set yourself apart. So we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of how you structure and build your job search plan of action. If you simply sit back and look at the internet, looking at those darn job postings, clicking and sending, you're not really going to have the outcome that you'd like to have. You're not going to have the outcome that you could have with a properly structured job search. That's going to leave you in one of these places. We don't like to think about that too much, but that is part of the human condition, and it is what can hold us back. Now, typically in job search, when we really start to think of it, we become overwhelmed very quickly. Let me bring these a little bit larger. I'll go a little bit smaller here so you can see them a little bit more easily. You know, all of these different things are activities that must be done on a regular basis in job search. Otherwise, we're not really controlling or managing or really uncovering the potential opportunity that could be there for us. That means, yeah, we have to, you know, we could see a job posting and we could hear about job postings. We have to understand the difference of those things. We can hear about a need, which could come even before there's ever a job posting. My gosh, if you could hear about a need before it became a job posting, you realize you're probably only competing with 10, 15, 20 individuals versus thousands of individuals once it goes to the posting level. So hearing about a need can be very important. You could uncover a need. Of course, jobs and leads through everything you see listed here, those are all different avenues that could open up information, possibilities, a future for us. Of course, a company might call us, maybe from all those click and sends, all that applying and everything else. Recruiter might call us, but hey, let me just come full screen here for a second. By the way, I love good recruiters, and that's 2, 3, 4% of the entire industry. The rest of the recruiting industry simply picks up whatever they find, throw it against the wall, and they see what sticks. And unfortunately, that gives the entire industry a very, very bad name. But the good recruiters are very good. Now, most recruiters that will call you statistically will never, ever place you. How about understanding the numbers just a little bit? 7 or 8 years in outside recruitment. So from my time working with a very good company in recruitment, there aren't very many of them, very good company in recruitment. So 7 or 8 years there, suddenly being VP over all 100 offices before I departed, I could see all of the recruiting deals. I could see all of the, not just the ones that belonged to me or the people that I was training, but across all 100 offices. And in doing some analysis, there's some very, very interesting things that happen. First off, it's very easy to understand that most hiring managers really don't understand what they're trying to hire. They may understand the title, they may understand just a few of the cursory responsibilities, but they don't really understand what they want to hire until they see it and react to it. That leaves it up to us to figure out, well, okay, well, how am I going to somehow turn this to my benefit? In terms of that recruiter reaching out to you, if statistically they're not going to place you, because as a recruiter, for every 100, and this is only if you're an exceptional good recruiter, for every 100 individuals that you find, locate, interview, identify, and qualify, ooh, that's a good candidate. For every one of those, you only place 1 to 2 out of every 100. That means there's a 98 or 99% possibility that that recruiter speaking to you will never place you. And yet they have to get value out of that discussion, out of that call. They might place you, but the 99% of the time or 98% of the time they don't. They have to extract value. And that's where they're very good with the charm and their ability to disarm. And really, while they talk to you and put you at ease, they're going to pick every one of your pockets for information. Something along the lines of, hey, I can't work with you. Great background, but I cannot work with you unless I know where you sent your resume. If we're going to work together, we have to partner, blah, 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 blah. I can't present you to those companies. Of course, all of that is true, but you only heard what they wanted you to hear. I can't present you to those companies. Gosh, what's the flip side of that? I could present every other person in my arsenal to those companies the moment you give me that list. So this is how recruiting works. The moment you hang up the phone, the moment you walk out of their office, they go to their files and they pull out a better person than you. They know who you are now. They pull out a better you and they call every company you just gave them on your list. Let's be careful with what we disclose to recruiters, although the good ones can help good candidates. Jobs are leads through these career development, professional development, career fairs, all of this. Yes, but you notice further down the list, and I hope you notice what is in last place. Job boards. We have to be really careful about how much planning time and how much execution time goes into just looking for job postings. That is not typically what will uncover that next real great opportunity for you. Maybe some of the lower end opportunities it might. That means we have to have a daily or weekly plan. Let's just bring this back on screen so you can see what's up here. We have to have a daily or weekly plan for searching for jobs, for setting out our resumes, for networking, for following up on opportunities, which I sure hope doesn't sound like, hey, I sent my resume in. Yes. And you're what, calling to see if I'm doing my work? Yeah. What's your name? I have a special file for you. It's a vertical file right over here. Very important. We just don't call people up to see if they're doing their work. There has to be some value. By the way, there's a great messaging session coming up in the next 2 weeks. So be sure to look at selfrecruiter.com and click on my calendar to understand what is coming up. I'll have all those February dates posted by later this afternoon. So we also have to strategize for interviews. Otherwise, how do you get better each time? And of course, we have to market ourselves to decision makers, those managers. And if we don't review these goals, these are just the umbrella targets. There's lots of individual activity below each one of these things that we have to do. But this is how we kind of get a control of it. Now, as you work through everything that you're going to work through, very quickly, you're going to feel lost. You're going to feel like you're maybe even inside of a tornado with something about to fly out here, there, and you may lose control. Wow, this is your guiding principle. Is this the most effective use of my time at this moment? Yes. This helps your compass stay on track. In job search, we typically do the things that are easiest, least risk, lowest priority, because it's just less stressful. You know what's more stressful? Staying unemployed longer. It's much easier to better manage your time and get back to the right career track sooner. And that means you do have to use this. Anytime you feel confused, should I do this, should I do that? What's the most effective use of my time at this moment? What gets me to an interview fastest? What gets me to a next interview fastest? What gets me to an offer fastest? This will help you make sure you're doing the right activities. Wherever you are in your process, take your first step or that next step and repeat. This is like trying to start an old lawnmower with one of those rip cords that is choking over because it's been all winter and it just doesn't want to start. You're going to have to get this thing humming. In case you haven't seen me before, John Crant, author, career coach, and speaker, resume and LinkedIn guru as well. Basically, besides the 7 or 8 years in outside recruitment, 3.5 years of that total time frame, by the way, was as the national trainer running the national program. As new recruiters would come into become recruiters, they'd come into my 90-day program to teach them how hiring really works, which is just not the way people think it works. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't need a lecture like this. Gosh, and I'm back. Those internet little gremlins, they get us now and then. Sorry about that. So let's just share my screen again. Hang on one second. Let's get this up here for you. Some good ideas in my book. We'll let you look at that on your own time. Let's just move on to our next screen here. Hang on one second here. Let me just get the application window back open for you. Sorry about that. There we go. Yep. Alrighty. So there we go. Hopefully we see everything up on screen here. Sorry, I had to work on those settings just a little bit. And screen is loading right now, and you should see it right there. There we go. All right, so we'll let you look at that on your own. A few other resources that will help you over on my LinkedIn page and also on my self-recruiter page. You can get to my LinkedIn video, which will help you as a start and stop tutorial. That'll certainly help make things a little bit easier as you work on that. Some other resources besides the lecture today, you can go over to LinkedIn and check out a number of the articles that I have up there, and those will also help move your job search forward. Now, in terms of this lecture and the whole series, the concept is simple. How is it that you're going to take back control? How is it that in this world where everything seems to be out of control and we're very isolated, how can you feel in control and be in control? That's largely developing your network in a very different way, which is LinkedIn. Watch that LinkedIn lecture if you haven't seen that part of it. Also, keeping one eye on that toughest competitor out there. You cannot beat these folks unless you keep an eye on them. You know, your job search is a sales process. It's not just as simple as, oh, I'll just go after, I'll send my resume in. If it was only that easy. There are so many things behind the scenes working against you. Just hitting the darn apply button isn't going to produce the result that you'd like in most cases. It's going to leave you back here in these very unhappy places, which we'd like to get a little bit away from. So we have to really create a job search plan if we're actually going to have something to manage. And to me, that means instead of chasing these job postings, which, I mean, let's toss a coin. Let's just come a little bit larger here so you can see me here. Let's just toss a coin here. If you're looking at job postings, why don't you simply, let's just go back a screen. I didn't mean to do that for you. Sorry about that. Why don't we simply flip a coin to figure out which ones are the right ones? Because you know what? About half of all job postings you see are not real. What? What do you mean they're not real? I mean, well, yes, the posting exists. It seems to be real, but it doesn't represent a job that in my view is real. For a job to be real, they have to be ready to post about that job now. They have to be ready to set interview times the moment they identify qualified candidates. And the moment they identify the right candidate out of those, they have to be ready to present an offer and set a start date. By those criteria, about half of all job postings are not real, which comes out of how those advertising spots are sold. On every single platform, those are sold up to 1 year in advance. So the only way you ever get a good deal is to figure out, well, how many job postings could we use? And let me go to my sales rep and let me cut a deal, little horse trading. And those become use them or lose them in 12 months. No idea 6 months or up to a year ago what they're going to hire. So to me, a real job search plan certainly looks at those as a resource for information, but we flipped the entire process. We begin this whole process by choosing the organizations or companies that we need to work for. These are companies you are dying to work for. By the way, the reason you're dying to work there cannot be some open job. So we're going to put this list of companies together, which makes a very, very different outcome. By the way, I teach how to create a statistically perfect list of 30 companies that would hire you today if they had an opening in my LinkedIn video. So make sure to watch that and find out exactly how to build that list. Devise the steps needed. Hey, what John's saying is crazy. This isn't really possible. But if it was possible, how do I align the sun, moon, the stars so I can see how this would work? That's devising the steps needed. Learning how to work backwards is a lot easier sometimes. Discover the decision makers. Of course, I teach that right in the LinkedIn lecture. Don't hesitate to go watch that one if you need to find out how to get those folks. Overcome their objections. And what's their title? Decision maker. And what their job is? To object to you. So when someone, oh, John, you don't have this. I'm excited. You know why I'm excited? Because they would not waste oxygen on this discussion if they didn't think, maybe I have to ask you this. So it becomes your job not to be thrown by the objections, but to be internally excited by the objections because they give you a platform which you can step upon and then overcome those objections. Tell them why you're so valuable. get that meeting, dazzle them, and let's have a different result. Either get the job or have them create a job for you. Think about the most intense project you have ever worked on in your work life. How much stress and energy and focus and anxiety was all around that project? Your job search is the most important project involved in your entire life for your career. And that has to involve problem solving, because job search is a sales process, no matter what we think of it. So the individual steps to take better charge and to supercharge are as simple as this. We're going to choose the companies or orgs, which has to be based on someone you're dying to work for. By the way, the reason you're dying to work there could be the product, the service, the reputation, position in the marketplace. It could be a whole number of things, but it cannot be because you see some open job. If you see some open job, that's about you. And job search is also a dating process. Besides being a sales process, must be about them before it's ever about us. Once you select the organizations or companies, you have your target list, you stack rank those. So of course you go after the most valuable, important ones to you first. Don't misapply your efforts. And from that, I'm going to go in to my LinkedIn. I'm going to select 25 to 30 individuals. If I imagine the job is right here, I'm going to go up the food chain, down the food chain, all the way down to admin level for very strategic reasoning, left and right into a surrounding department or two. I get a nice, healthy mix of 25 to 30 people. You know what, that I'll probably interact with in a normal non-pandemic world. I'll probably interact with them every day or nearly. So that's how you begin to warm up the audience. I'm going to select those folks on LinkedIn, open their profiles, which automatically triggers a marketing event of you having looked at them. And when they sign in, they're teased. Oh, six people looked at you. Click, click, click. I have to see. Irresistible. If you haven't looked at that feature before, you certainly will after this. This is a tool really to drive subscription desire. By the way, I only use the free version of LinkedIn. I love the free version. You should use whichever you'd like to use and whatever economically makes sense for you. Everything I teach you can do in the free version. So I've got those 25 to 30 individuals. I'm going to open their profiles, triggering the marketing. And now with the very next step, without waiting for anything, I'm going to ask them to connect. I'm going to ask them to connect with a basic message that communicates, you don't know me, I'm professionally appropriate, here's a little stroke to your ego. And out of the 25 to 30, you probably get 10, 12 acceptances pretty quickly. Oh, I know you want them all. It's not really about that. I mean, a little bit, but not really. Many of them may not connect with you until after they meet you. Who knows? This is about getting them to look at you, giving them multiple chances to read your three-dimensional sales brochure. That's your LinkedIn profile if it's done the correct way. All about you guiding them to one conclusion. My gosh, if I hire this person, best business decision I make today. By the way, after you ask them to connect, you do not wait for an answer. The answer is actually irrelevant because this is a sales process. I simply open, ask to connect, and move right on to the next step, which is to look at my 25 to 30 people I picked. And then based on your own feeling, pick out the 3, 4, 5 people that you think will somehow be involved in the discussion to hire you. Very likely is going to include the decision maker, but doesn't have to. If you somehow are a little bit off target and miss the decision maker, every one of those 3 to 5 people will know the decision maker. You impress them, you'll get moved right along. Book a meeting, sell, that's your job. And understand that you have to repeat. You have to get as many of these going as possible. That's how you get choice in your career. So if you have a plan, you can move a mountain. If you don't have a plan, you're not going to get very far. Job search itself is a sales process, which means we should really look at this sales funnel. We have to understand the sales funnel. We have to understand how much activity has to go up in the top, which produces a little less activity here, produces a little less down here, right down to that offer. So that's why we start with the 30 companies at the really top. And we also start with 25 to 30 people. So as we move down, we're creating something that will produce an outcome that we might like. So think of this. It's one thing to think about the funnel itself, but then, okay, what are my goals for every week in relation to this kind of concept? If you would like choice, if you would like to get to an offer as quickly as possible, or maybe multiple offers, then you have to pursue 10 organizations at the same time. That's a lot of activity to juggle. I understand it. You will likely begin to forget things that are very important. Use a notepad, use your calendar. You have more important things to do every single day of your job search than you possibly have time for. You have to stack, rank, and prioritize. So let's go after these 10 companies. Let's make sure we do all of that outreach we need to, with a goal of producing one new organizational interview per week. That's not a second or third interview with XYZ. Please go get those as well. That's a new interview at a new company every single week. That's how you're going to get to the correct level that will produce opportunities. So again, 30 companies, organizations, statistically perfect to hire you produces a very different result than just 30 random companies. So as I said before, we're going to connect with these people to warm up our target audience. We're going to look up that food chain, down that food chain, left and right. Nice, healthy mix, all of the people that might interact with us. We're going to open. We're going to ask them to connect. We're going to start off this whole process. We don't wait for a single result. The basic message: I like to connect with other professionals in our niche or niche, depending how we like to say that, comma. And of course, I'd love to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. It says you don't know me. I'm professionally appropriate. And here's a little stroke to your ego. That does a lot to get people sliding over the dish of popcorn or the dish of potato chips and reading about your background in an ongoing way on your LinkedIn profile. That's the whole purpose here. Now, without waiting for a single answer, because that's actually a trap. The answer is completely irrelevant. Just pick out those 3, 4, 5 people. This is where we now have to begin to build some equity in your job search. So I hope you're using some sort of a system. By the way, you can download this system for free right on my website, right under my advice tab, which is my blog on myselfrecruiter.com. Just look for the job search management system. You can download the whole thing for free. So you have to have some forms. You have to begin to essentially build out your knowledge for each company that you approach, because you'll need that knowledge both in this transition for yourself and maybe even future transitions. Small changes in what you do and how you begin change everything. That also means our script is going to need to change as well. We have a lot of things that we have to overcome. Now, key today is something I never thought would be key a year ago, and that is working remotely. In fact, working remotely has always been one of those more difficult things to get, because they're never quite sure. Are you really working? Are you really working? Your feet home up having bonbons? Well, now that they have a proof of concept that a great number of us, I think it's somewhere between 60-65% of Americans are working from home full time. Now, some professions we can't do that, but the ones we can, of course, health-wise makes a lot of sense. In the future, organizations, when they start to refactor and rethink, they're spending $10,000 to $12,000 per employee for that office space. That's money they could either give to you to hire better employees, if you're a better employee, or they could put in better training to get better results. There's a lot of things that they could do with that money rather than just waste it on office space that's not necessary. Some functions, of course, will have to go. If you've not worked remotely before, your job is to convince them that there's no issue with working remotely. That means even if you're uncomfortable, you can't let them see you going, oh, no, where's this? Where's that? No. You know about where the camera is. Just look over there, stay poised, stay focused, even though you have to do it without a net in your head. Plus, you have to retell your story. You've probably, just like you see up here, you probably have experience with some offsite, either vendors, managers, team members. We don't have to read that whole thing. That's another way to begin to say, well, I could work remotely. Or, gosh, I've spoken at conferences, or I do conference calls or webinars all the time. Again, not the same thing as working remotely, but another way to convey you're very comfortable at working remotely, which is going to be huge in the decision process these days. And just who is it that makes the decisions? We get so stuck on the decider. Who's the decider? Okay, there is a decider, but rarely does the decider decide in a bubble. Good example is years ago when I worked as a recruiter for a company called Informatica, placing people all over the country. Gosh, I had this one this one manager of mine in Atlanta, Eric. He's moved on years later. But gosh, Eric, I'd placed a number of people with, and I was so busy, kind of like you're busy in job search. I suddenly go, oh gosh, haven't talked to Eric in a while. I should give him a call, see what's going on. And I called him, and we had a little nice small talk. And he's like, gosh, I'm glad you called. I need your help. I'm just about finished up here for Atlanta. I need your help on Tennessee and Kentucky. Now, we didn't have to discuss a lot. I placed people with him before. I knew what he really needed. But the only thing I'm thinking about is just about wrapped up for Atlanta. You know what that is? Not wrapped up. Another way to think of it is that's an opportunity to step into the race at the finish line. But had I stopped my friend Eric and said, oh, Eric, gosh, if you haven't had an offer out, I'd love to present. No. We're too far along. Just Tennessee and Kentucky. It's like your parents. You don't ask your parents for permission. You ask your parents for forgiveness. Had I asked him up front, he would have said no. But I spent the next 2 hours pulling a superstar from a competitor, 200% quota, called him back 2 hours later, told him what he needed to hear, which was also truthful. Gosh, Erica, I've met with my team, which by the way was me, myself, and I. We've got some calls out for Tennessee and Kentucky. We should have something very, very soon. By the way, oh my gosh, if you have not extended that offer for Atlanta, I have a superstar for you. They're 200% of quota. They're over here at your direct competitor. They'd love to speak with you. I want to talk with them. Not how much they are. Why are we looking? Not that it's last minute. I want to talk with them. My person came in, by the way, number 3. Number 3 is not losing. By the way, number 1, 2, or 3 is winning. You don't win unless you're 1, 2, or 3. But, Eric, who is the decider, which is where we're going with this, doesn't decide in that vacuum. He picks 3 people he would hire anyway, sends them up to the Eastern VP. Gets the Eastern VP's thoughts on that. What's your take here? And the Eastern VP says, Eric, it's up to you. Whatever you'd like to do. But, I like this one for this one and this one here. But, hey, it's up to you. Every single time. You know who Eric hires? The one that the VP said. Eric was clear he'd hire any of these in his own heart. Let's go and cover my behind. Because if he chose someone that was not recommended and then they didn't produce, well, I told you maybe you should have hired the other one. But good decision making. Once I understood it was going up to the VP, I knew the VP, I knew their personality, and that allowed me to coach my individual to knock out the other 2 and become number 1. Shortest placement I ever had, 7 days start to finish. If you in your job search could step in at the finish line, it could be quite a game changer for you as well. So how do we get to the decision maker and the people around them? Maybe even I might like to tell you that if you follow my advice, I'd prefer you don't start with the decision maker, but maybe even start 2 levels above the decision maker. Top-down selling, that's called. If you catch that person's interest and attention, my gosh, they'll introduce you right down the food chain. And when you get introduced down the food chain, you always get the interview. So how do we find these people and how do we figure out who they are? Well, I don't really care what sector or field that you're in. You understand how your org chart works. You can see it here up on screen. Or if you need to see it a little more detail, we can make it a little bit bigger for you. We simply need to figure out, well, who are these people? It's pretty easy to look up these titles. We can begin to fill in our own knowledge of this company and uncover who have I networked with? Who have I reached out to? What was my next step? What should be my next step? What else can I do? Forums that help you manage are about getting you to think about your job search and how you really uncover people. There's other ways to find decision makers simply beyond LinkedIn, and that's look for the places that mention their names, articles, books. You see what's up here. That's part of it. So name mentions are certainly one of the avenues. Referrals from every single person that you speak with. Gosh, Jack, Jim, or Jill, who's the best so-and-so that you've ever come in contact with? Oh, what's their number? Oh, do you have their email address handy? Referrals, very, very important. We have to get to a place in conversation where there's rapport, so they'll give us a referral. Very, very important. So referrals, name mentions, those will help us get there. Using LinkedIn and the typical org chart, the reverse lookup and how to do all that, that's pretty simple. We just go into LinkedIn, unified search box right at the top of the page. It's the same on every single page. I simply use that to look up the organizations that I'm after. By the way, in this scenario, this demonstration, I'm looking up Informatica. But my gosh, make sure as you type these things, whether it's people or names or whatever, just don't click on the drop-down menu. That's a trip down the rabbit hole. In this example, I'm looking for Informatica, but as long as I'm here, I should check and see if there's maybe other companies that I haven't looked at yet that I should, maybe they'd like to hire me as well. So even though I'm going after Informatica, let's see who else. Look under companies. Suddenly you come up with 34,000 companies. What is going on here? Let me come a little bit bigger screen here so we can, let's just talk about this for a second over here. There we go. You know, when we look at this, yes, the first handful down this list are all called Informatica something, but beyond a couple dozen or whatever it may be, the rest are not Informatica. What are they doing on this list? I can tell you, it used to be one of my industries. These are all system integrators that are on this list. They either install or resell Informatica software. If I am right to work for Informatica, oh my gosh, I'm likely right to work for a potential number of these organizations. So this is a way to not miss other companies you should be marketing yourself to at the same time. Juggle, juggle, juggle. But then I have to find real people. So I got to go back. I got to say, no, show me the people, show me the people. And then what do I get? 2.5 million. Never get through that list. I'll be cold in the ground. How do we get by? How do we get by? Maybe I have to think. Maybe I can narrow it down by location. I don't need people all over the world, just the ones in the US. And you know what? As long as I'm thinking of it, how about also the ones that currently work for Informatica? Not 3 years ago, Informatica. What do I get? Oh, 1,615 results. Much more manageable. I can't look at that list either. I'm on the free version. They're going to cut me off really quickly. So I have to think a little bit more here. Maybe it's a VP I think is going to hire me, still on the free version of LinkedIn. Really in the US, really currently working for Informatica. What do I get? Oh, 75 VPs. A lot of chiefs. You know, maybe it's a director that's going to hire me. Director, really US, really Informatica currently. What do I get? 228 directors. No, it's brainstorming. This is problem solving. You have to think. So by doing all this, I've realized what I'm actually after is a sales director, really right within New York City, even on the free version, right down to New York City. And what do I get? Oh, 3. Did you forget that I'm really looking for 3 to 5 individuals that are all perfect? Well, I've got 3. I can just go with 3. Yes, you can. But if you go with 5, your odds increase. So I'm looking for the right people, but I'd like to see some more. And then suddenly I go, well, maybe it's a sales VP. Maybe there's a sales VP also really in New York City. And my gosh, there's 2 of those folks. Fantastic. Now I have 5 people I can reach out to and introduce myself to, and hopefully impress enough of them that suddenly there's response. By the way, let's pull this one center screen here, because my gosh, if you are sending an in-mail, please don't send an in-mail. In-mail is the literal definition of spam. It is paid email. Please do not send it. It may not seem that way to you, but I have well over 1,000 unopened messages in my LinkedIn inbox, just clogged endlessly with as much as I post with spam. So don't do it. What you do is hit that darn connect button. Now, you know that I want to connect with with Nick here, even though it says send in mail. So load his profile. It's still going to frustrate you with the send in mail, but understand you can click those ... and the drop down, they've just hidden it behind the bushes for a minute. Oh, there's the connect button. They can't really hide it too much. It's their business model. My gosh, there is that message you write one time ever, copy and paste forevermore. I love to connect, or I like to connect with other professionals in our niche or niche. And of course, I'd love to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. Sales process. Connect with people, select the individuals. It's a sales process. Reach out to them, open and ask. It's a sales process. Don't wait. Select your 3 to 4 or 5 individuals. Reach out to them and pitch yourself to them. Track it all on a form so you know you can follow up. And by the way, if I'm pitching myself, follow up is not next week. If I don't hear back within about 24 hours, the statistical likelihood that you're going to hear back is almost 0. So wherever you are in this process, this is where we need to take a little bit of measured risk and begin to reach out. Hi, this is John. I'd like you to hire me. Well, that's not a very good message. Hopefully we think about how we're going to change that message. You have to have value in every single word. You have to stroke their ego first before you present your value. and you've got to be irresistible and persuasive. That's your job. Let's go over the script itself. 30 seconds to live or die. And dying sounds like, how'd you get my number? Take me off your list. Never call me again. Security? Let's avoid that here. Now, this form here is part of the job search management system. You can download right from the website, selfrecruiter.com. Just click the advice tab and you'll see the job search management system. You can just download it. Let's zoom in so you can see this thing. And I'm going to take this full screen here so we can just make it even just a little bit larger here. So as we look at this, let's just go down the basic structure. We're going to greet them. We're going to wait for the response, which nobody wants to do because that's where they go, how'd you get my number? Take me off your list. Never call me again. We're then going to tell them why we're calling. Maybe we might inform about our educational background if we went to a very, very special school. If not, you just leave that aside for the moment. And you go right to the jugular of 2 or 3 key accomplishments that would make them jump out of their chair. And you close them, which is a scary sales term, which simply means ask for what you'd like and ask for agreement to it. Now, I'd like you to hear how this should sound. You're not really intended to write it right now. You need to take some time. This is a sales message about you, and it needs to be very, very special. In general, it's going to sound like this. Dear Jack, dear Jim, dear Jill, I just had to reach out and introduce myself to you. I'm so excited by what I see going on at XYZ company. By the way, I saw that Wall Street Journal article on your new such and such launch because I went and looked for it. You have to do your homework. If this is a date, if it's about them, there is something going on in their press releases, something going on in the news about them, something going on their new initiatives. Those all represent talking items that you can use to illustrate your excitement. You can use as a potential to introduce the skills and contributions you might be able to bring to such a project. So I want you to think about how you're going to work through all of this. You're going to introduce them, tell them why you're calling, had to reach out and introduce myself to you, and segue and sell your background. When I was with ABC Company, I worked on a very, very similar launch to what I'd read in the article in the journal. I would love to come in. All you need is a carrot to dangle in front of them. I'd love to come in or even have a Zoom meeting these days where I could share a little bit more about how we tackled all those issues I bet your team's experiencing. Then you have to go for the jugular. That's the closing part. I have an opening on my calendar. My calendar. Your words are very important. I have an opening on my calendar Tuesday at 10 a.m. One day, one time, never more. If you're open all next week, I am never meeting you. You are not worth it. Your schedule is not full. You are not valuable. Valuable people have a full schedule all the time. So I offer one day, one time. By the way, I don't really expect them to be open Tuesday at 10, but I sure hope you're open because you're offering it. Most of the time, they're going to push back. Tuesday's terrible. I wish they hadn't yelled at me. Tuesday's terrible. Don't lose sight. This is a chess game. When I hear Tuesday's terrible, I'm like, you know why? Because they're reacting about the schedule. Good, bad, or ugly about the schedule means you've already won. They've already psychologically moved past the point of deciding to speak with you, and they're just focused on the schedule. So the moment I hear that, I go, Wednesday, 3 o'clock. Oh, perfect, perfect. Why do they become a nice person rather than this two-headed monster yelling at me? Because they're in the middle of their workday. You don't judge them by that, and you're interrupting their workday. Book the meeting, get off the phone very, very quickly. Now, you could also, another thing that you could do is you could ask them for a relationship. Now, this typically comes up when you are reaching out to someone. You've been able to have a nice session to build a little rapport, to introduce yourself, maybe genuinely, not just a deflection technique, but genuinely they've shared with you that, we just hired the last 2 spots. I wish I'd been in contact with you last month. Timing, right? What do you think the odds are of those 2 people they just hired both working out and both knocking it out of the ballpark? I could plant a seed right now, first off, that they could come back to me if something didn't work out. Rarely going to come back to me if I don't plant that seed. And secondly, I can then make this pitch for a relationship. Here's how it works. First off, when they say it's full, gosh, we just hired. Oh, congratulations. Don't forget it's a date. It's about them first. Congratulations. It's always good to have your team filled. Jack, let me ask you, And I certainly hope that they really produce the way you expect. But, if something doesn't go the way you expect, if you don't get the results that you're after, oh my gosh, please keep me in mind. Don't hesitate to reach back out. I remain very, very interested. Something else I'd like to ask you is, I am out there talking to hiring individuals all the time. And on occasion, there's a very interesting scenario that comes by. If I had a question at some point and I had something to share, would it be okay that I called you back, shared a scenario, and got your opinion? Oh, my opinion, my advice. And so like, you're going to get that agreement very often. I never understood this at first as a recruiter. I'm like, I'm supposed to do what? That doesn't even seem to make sense to me. And boy, when you're engaging, people will agree to it. And then suddenly you have this agreement to a relationship. You're not likely to actually call them back to ask their opinion, but it builds a stronger connection and a strong memory. Think about what you see on screen here and how it conveys, how it makes them feel. Gosh, elevates them. And they also live in a bubble where they don't get exposed to industry knowledge as much. So you're one of the ways they get exposed to industry knowledge. You're one of the ways that you're valuable, as long as you don't burn them out. And that means we don't call them back unless there's some purpose, unless there's some value, unless there's something that will either build a future for us or plant some doubt about someone else. Now, as long as I have them on the phone and then I'm not getting something, I always have to segue over. This is part of supercharging your job search, to get other ideas, get other opinions. Yeah, gosh, I know with your background and position within the industry, stroke. I mean, you must hear things. Who do you know that's hiring right now? Or gosh, Jack, with my background, if you had it, what am I missing? Where do you think I should look? I think you should look at ABC Company. Why didn't they say that before? It's not their job to come up with places to think about suggesting for you. It's your job to cause them to come up with places to think of suggesting for you. That's part of rapport and also part of how you're going to pick their brain to produce results. It's thinking all the time, well, what can I get from this call? Yes, I'm after the interview if I can get it, but if you don't get it, what else could you get? Could you get introduced to other people? Could you find out more information about the company? Could you find out more about where they came from? Could you find out the best individual at their last company? All sorts of things. But you have to run down this list. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but you have to run down this list, and especially the last one, always be thinking there is something else I can do here. What else could I do? So to recap how to supercharge your job search, we're going to choose the organizations or companies. Those are 30 organizations that I'm going to go after, and I'm going to go after 10 of them simultaneously. If I don't go after 10 simultaneously, I'm not likely to produce the potential opportunities that I might like. At each organization, I'm going to select 25 to 30 individuals. I'm going to open their LinkedIn profiles. I'm going to ask them to connect, not wait for the answer. And then I'm going to select 3, 4, or 5 of those individuals, and I'm going to directly email them. Let's be clear. I'm not going to in-mail them. I'm going to email them at their real email. And by the way, it is not brain surgery to get anybody's email. That is 99% of the people's email in 2 or 3 minutes. And if we can't do that, then we need a little class on internet searching and technique. It's really simple. Most companies, you simply find one human being's email. You have every human being's email at the company. Just change the format and the name and email at will. Book a meeting, sell, and repeat. That's your job. How do we make this into a repeatable process where you're endlessly nudging and pushing things forward? Summarize a little bit here on our planning our day and how we manage this. Got to have some sort of system. This daily, weekly plan to manage those core elements that we started out at the top of this lecture. How are we going to manage all those things which have a lot of different activities below each item? And then how are we going to review it? How are we going to keep ourselves on track with a little bit of compass? I'm not going to take you through the whole system, but I do just want to show it to you. So job search activity goals. This is your goal setting. I'm going to zoom in here. Bottom of this form, these are your weekly goals. Now you have to put your own goals in here, but I can suggest some goals for you if you would like outcome. Okay, so number of companies I'll contact this week. Those are brand new companies you've never contacted before. You very likely have 3, 4, 5 or more companies you have to follow up with and contact. Those don't count. You have to have new blood in your job search each week. So I think the number is about 3. That may seem low to you. Why don't you try 2, 3 weeks into this and see if you can sustain 3 per week? As it snowballs, you have a lot of other follow-up activity that has to happen. 3 is a very aggressive thing that you can put together, and you can manage it. 25 to 30 people at each company, everything else, a lot to juggle. Number of emails, those are outbound to decision makers, not to folks in HR, unless you're in HR and you're looking for an HR job. Right out to decision makers. Number of calls, maybe yours is 0 because you're not up to calling yet. That's okay. When you're ready, make that first call. Maybe even make that call after hours. You can practice first leaving it into the voicemail. Get yourself a little bit comfortable. Of course, number of calls to managers, not to HR, unless you're working in HR, of course. And out of that, the very last number is the one we can kid ourselves most about, the number of meaningful conversations. By the way, a meaningful conversation is you had to get something of value for yourself out of it. I booked a meeting. I extracted a name. I got a referral to somebody else. I uncovered some piece of knowledge that will benefit me. Boy, we could do a lot of that simply by having a laundry list of questions ready. Top of this form, you sit down every single Friday and have a little epiphany moment with yourself. Does you no good to fudge these numbers? You know what? You run right down this list. And if you've got a goose egg, put a goose egg in there. 2 or 3 goose eggs, and maybe you'll motivate yourself. I'm ready. I'll get 1, then 2. Then by the end of 8 weeks, you're going to see a very big difference in your outcome if you simply follow these. All these forms, not going to zoom into them. All these forms you can download on your own, things to track the job search opportunities themselves, to think about your networking strategy and how that has to continually develop. The resumes you've actually sent out so you could literally follow up. If it was worth all of your time, I think you need to follow up with those decision makers. Interview strategy sheet. So your entire interview process is a training session, so you're better and better and better each time. Of course, a calling strategy sheet for the same thing. Wherever you are in your job search in this process, take that first step or the next step and understand, repeat, 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 repeat. We have to get this like we're riding a bike, and it's just going to go. Thank you guys for joining in. I really do appreciate it. Don't forget, we do have some resources over on the LinkedIn side. If you need someone to help reinvent your resume or reinvent your LinkedIn profile, I think you know where to find me, selfrecruiter.com. You can reach out, do those things for my clients. Also do one-on-one coaching. So look for the new lectures we'll have posted this afternoon, and hope to see you next week. Thanks for joining in. Appreciate it.